You're listening to the Nothing Podcast with Nobody Important, where a group of nobodies speak to an actual somebody. And now your hosts, John and Frank.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Frank.
I'm John.
And you're listening to the Nothing Podcast
with Nobody Important.
This episode is for all the artists out there, the dreamers, the cartoon lovers, and me.
That's it, absolutely.
Thank you. We have Pilar Newton today, who is a professional animator.
Yeah, she's worked on such shows as Courage the Cowardly Dog, Daria, and many others. She's done all sorts of things in animation and is now working on a graphic novel of her own and has a whole world of characters that she's been working on for years. And we got to talking all about that and sort of the inside of being an animator. And, you know, we all watch cartoons and talk about cartoons and they're part of our everyday life, but you don't really think about what necessarily goes into them. And she kind of gives us a peek behind the curtain, as it were. Yeah,
she told us what it was like to work at Nickelodeon, MTV. She had some experience doing something at Pixar. She's super cool. And of course, when we had a professional animator in our midst, we had to ask her about the dirty things they hid in Disney movies.
Oh, of course.
Of course, because that's what the people want.
Yeah, so the episode was real fun. We got into some really, really interesting, funny stuff. And also, I want to say, our second game that we usually do this time around, actually, is it going to be exclusively video? You will not hear it in this episode. It'll be on YouTube, it'll be on Instagram, it'll be on our Facebook, because Pilar did a live drawing for us. She did a couple animated characters, and we said some stupid stuff over that while she was doing
stupid.
It, so,
she literally, she made 4 characters, I think, right?
Yep.
Out of nothing, she created 4 random characters. I don't know how she did it. We were watching, she shared her screen with us because we're still on Zoom. We were watching in amazement at these things being drawn, and then she let us voice them, and then she let us call them the Nothing Podcast Clubhouse.
There you go.
The animated series.
There you go. That's it. Each one of us is going to voice one of these characters in an animated series.
The worst cartoon ever.
Yes. Let's just get right into it. What do you think? She's she's very exciting, and she gets us started off on the right foot. So you know what? I'm going to throw it over to her now.
Hi everyone, I'm Pilar Newton. I'm an animator and an illustrator based in Brooklyn, and I'm happy to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the magical world of Park Slope, I have brought you a guest who's incredible. And her name is Pilar. Let's welcome her. We got Pilar, everybody.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Pilar, if I could just share the story of how we know each other, because I didn't want to tell anybody until on air, because I think it's so random and ridiculous.
Yes, he's kept us on our toes this whole time.
Now, truth be told, I've only met Pilar twice, okay? We're not old friends. I met her twice. And what happened was, there's a coffee shop in Park Slope that I love called Cafe Martin.
Yes.
Okay, small, cozy, super cute, old-fashioned. So I was in there reading, and maybe it can seat 8 people. It's very small.
Yeah.
Is that? Can I interrupt you? Is that the one with the really good?
Yes, it is.
Almond thing
with yes. Mocha? No, do you have I took you there.
You
took me there.
That was
they
it.
had this almond pastry. It was unbelievable.
Oh yes, the almond croissant is insane.
Oh, the almond croissant was so good.
Their coffee is literally in a goblet this big. Like they literally
delicious.
give it to you in a bowl. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So good.
Okay, shout out to Cafe Martin. So I was sitting in there reading, and there's not much to look at because it only holds about 6 people. So Pilar was sitting across from me, which in that place is basically 4 feet, foot to foot. And I looked up at her, whatever, I was reading, and then I noticed she was drawing. And I'm somebody who I think I'm an artist in some regards, right? So I was instantly taken by this girl across from me who was drawing, and it seemed like she really knew what she was doing, and I was trying to catch glimpses of what she was doing. Now, she wasn't drawing me. That would make the story so much better. She was drawing a cartoon, and it was clearly very good. So we just started talking, and maybe we talked in Cafe Martin for 45 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Totally. I think I talked about theater, you talked about art, we talked about school, whatever. That was it. I think when we friended each other on social media.
Yeah, no, we went back and forth on social media. Okay, go ahead.
Right. And then I think a couple of months later, there's another place in Park Slope that I love, which is a ramen place. Okay?
Yes, also my favorite place.
Also my favorite place. So I'm sitting at the counter alone at the ramen place. No shame. Love it. The counter's right when you walk in. This is months later. I'm eating the ramen. I turn to my left. The door opens. And, would you know it, here comes Pilar. Now, I've only met her once, but I said, Pilar! And she was like, hey, maybe you didn't remember my name. It's fine. In that moment, Pilar decided she was going to sit next to me at the counter. We ate our ramen. We shared dumplings. And we talked for another hour.
You shared your rice.
Oh, the rice. So, that's how I know Pilar. That's it.
That's amazing.
And it was really cool. Oh, by the way, if you want to know what I was working on, I just shared the link for with you to the comic that I was working on. And what you were seeing was just like a rough sketch of just the beginnings of the comic. And this is the full comic in its entirety. Like I finished it, like it was from like a year ago. So
what is it called?
It's called Timya's Glacier. And it's about a little monkey named Timya, and she lives in like kind of an Arctic environment, but they're on another world, and she has an adventure. And I did
this.
That
it's,
oh, thanks.
It's called the Call of the Snoz Crabs.
Yeah, and it's funny because the graphic novel that I'm working on now, these guys behind me, take place in the same universe, but it's a different story.
Oh, is this the Pilar cinematic universe?
It's real. I'm hoping it'll be, but this is like the one behind me is an idea I've had since I was 8 years old. Timya, I've had Timya for about 20 years. Timya just started off as like a sketch in my sketch pad, just like a doodle. I was like, hey, this would make a great kids show, and it never went anywhere. And then I just turned it into like a young adult comic.
And so this is now your original concept. You created these characters as well, so it's not like you're just the illustrator animator for someone else's idea. This is your idea.
Yeah, I wrote and illustrated it, and
wow.
I actually am also doing this as part of my master's studies. I'm at the School of Visual Arts, getting a master's in visual narrative, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's all a visual, but also narrative, and you write basically author as artist or artist as author. And now I'm working on like a nearly 100-page graphic novel.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. Maniacal laugh follows that.
So I'd like to point out, just as a nod to you, I'm not sure because I haven't been able to read it through, but I'm looking at a creature, and if I was to say if there was ever a name for this creature, it's a snoz crab.
Yeah.
Like when I think that's kind of the beauty of animation and character creation, right? Is that you have something called a snoz crab, and I don't know, I've never heard of that before. And then you show me it, and it's 100% what I would picture it to be. And like that's kind of amazing.
What came first, Pilar? The drawing of the creature or the name?
Well, actually, I'll take it even further back. These guys behind me are snozzlewinks, and they're like creatures. And I came up with them when I was 8 years old, and I was obsessed with like the Smurfs. I was obsessed with Saturday morning cartoons. I was obsessed with like adventures and comics, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I was just like, I can't take this anymore. I need more. So I was like, the only way to get even more is to just draw my own. And I just filled up notebooks with my own comics of the Snozzlewinks having adventures. But I drew them, and I was like talking to my friend, and I was like, what should they be called? And we were both like, they definitely look like Snozzlewinks. Yes. And I have to ask her if she remembers us having this conversation, but it was definitely on the D train.
Well, some of those Snozzlewinks look like they live on the D train, I gotta tell you.
They probably do, especially now. Like,
Pilar, just your style on the ones we're looking at right now, I don't know if it speaks for your style across the board, but I love it because it seems so like 1990s Nickelodeon.
And I'm hugely influenced by that. I worked on some stuff for Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network during that time. So it's sort of like a mix between my own style and like my influences.
Right. That's crazy. That's so good. So let's take a step back. And I want to go backwards and kind of introduce our audience to exactly what it is that you do and what you've worked on and who you are. And then we'll go backwards and see how you got there.
Well, I've been obsessed with drawing cartoons since I was like 8 years old. I got my start in animation. Like animation was my love. Comics are actually my first love, but animation is like something I knew I wanted to do. So I went to Rhode Island School of Design. I majored in animation, film and video. I was a film major doing animation. And shortly after I graduated, I became an intern at a little studio called Stretch Films that was in like an office the size of a bathroom stall. And if you've ever seen pictures of John Dilworth, he's like 6'8", tall, and like he doesn't know. Like he looks at you, he goes, "Yes!" Like he's really.
Wait, is he John Dilworth? Is his name?
Yeah, and actually, if you see his cartoons, so we were working on some animation for like a CD-ROM. If you remember those, a couple of you might be too young, might not remember.
No,
but,
of course.
No, we know what they are.
But and I was an intern. I came in as an intern, and then after about 2 weeks, he goes, "You're too good. I'm going to start paying you." And what I love about him is that I really appreciated that, because I would have gladly worked for him for a year, not even thinking about it. And it was because he's a creative person. He understands. Or he was like, "No, I'm going to pay you." I'm like, and. So he was working on a little show called Courage the Cowardly Dog, and
we've heard of it.
Yeah, oh yeah, just a little thing. And he worked on a pilot called Courage the Cowardly Dog and a Chicken from Outer Space, and it actually counted as a film too, and it got nominated for an Oscar that year. And around the time that I started with him, we were doing short films for for Sesame Street, and I would go to my day job, which is I was working at the Museum of TV and Radio, and I would work there. Then I would like leave at 6 o'clock and then go to John's office and work until 1 a.m. He'd send me home in a cab. I'd come back at 9 a.m. the very next morning, work for 3 hours, 4 hours, hop on a train and go back up to work and start the whole thing all over again. It was like amazing. And John, he was amazing. So they got picked up for this show, Courage the Cowardly Dog. They brought me on as a prop designer, my very first gig. And the storyboard supervisor like stole me. Like he poached me from the design team and said, "You're a storyboard artist now." I was like, yay. And then after
Pilar, were you working in that tiny little office doing that show?
No, actually when the show got picked up, it ended up being like a massive long office that was like about the size of like a Starbucks restaurant, like maybe a little longer. With offices on either side, and it was big, and it was even like a fire escape. You could take coffee breaks on. You can't do that now because like fire. You say, "Hey, Pilar, you want to go out on a fire escape?" And we would all go out there and drink coffee and like talk, and then you can go back. No cigarettes were ever smoked. And then we were get back. So when that ended, I really wanted to get my foot in the door at MTV, and I ended up becoming a layout artist on the show Daria. And if you guys are familiar with it, I see some people. Yeah,
I am.
Yeah.
Was Daria based on Danielle Fisher? Don't you think Daria looks just like Danielle?
I can see it, of course. Danielle, where did you go for undergrad? Sorry, I'm like totally deviating.
I went to FIT.
Oh, you're an FIT person. Awesome.
Yeah, I went for illustration. Originally fashion illustration and then just general illustration.
Yes!
Pilar, just back up for a second. When you were on Courage the Cowardly Dog, what does a prop designer do for a cartoon?
Are you guys, how familiar are you guys with the show?
Oh, I'm very familiar.
Yeah, okay. So I won't get too specific, but because for those, I'll bore you if you're not familiar with the show. But like anything that moves and is not a character is a prop. So if Courage picks up a Post-it notepad or a glass of water or whatever, the prop designer has to pull it from the storyboard and design a model pack of like these props for every episode. So I would have to draw this Post-it notepad from this angle, from the back, maybe open. This way, when it gets sent to Korea to be animated, they have everything. Because it's like, well, it's just a prop. It's just a pencil. He just picks up a pencil. Who cares? It's draw it. No. Because if the animators see it, there could be like a dot. See that dot right there? If they don't see that that's part of the design, an animator overseas might assume that that's just a smudge of ink and not include it. So you have to see. you have to be really specific as possible. Like,
so you would design like a car or whatever, anything that would move that wasn't a character, and then they
I
would
suck at cars. No cars.
How would they animate it?
Anything that's
No cars.
Anything that's held. All right, and check this out. Just to give you an idea, Courage the Cowardly Dog. The first episode I worked on was Cat's Motel, and it was a welcome to the Cat's Motel, and the character was being chased by these giant spiders, and I was drawing like freaking spiders for days. Okay, draw the spider. Now draw another spider in a jar. Draw another spider in a jar. Now draw a giant spider. Oh, and then the next one was Curse of the Werewolf, and where the old lady Muriel gets bitten by, instead of a werewolf, it's a weremole. The thing that digs. Courage the Cowardly Dog. He's this dog like a beagle that he's this purple beagle that's running around screaming like ah. He's cowardly, but at the same time, he would do anything. He's actually really brave, but he screams because he's so scared all the time. But he's actually really brave. He would do anything to save the owners. So he puts on a rabbit costume to use himself as bait to draw out the wormhole so he could stop it somehow. And the rabbit suit he's on, I designed. Oh, suit, yeah! I designed the rabbit suit. If you guys saw like Freaky Fred, and that's like that's another thing prop designers do is like you have to do character dress ups. So in the Great Fusilli, for instance, like I worked on that design.
Oh, that's so cool!
Yeah,
that's like one of the classic ones. I feel like I've seen that. That's an outfit that I've seen him in.
Yeah,
a bunch. Like I feel like I always see that one
in the Great Fusilli. There's this duck that turns people into puppets, and he talks like this, and I'm going to get you. And there's this one scene where they go into like this scary, creepy shop. It looks like a workshop, but all these puppets are hanging there, but the puppets all have these like horrified expressions on their faces, but they're marionettes. In that scene, there's a version of me, except there's a scene where it's like pulled further back, and I'm sitting on the floor like this, and it's actually a puppet Pilar. At one point, she was gonna wake up and go, "You're all doomed, you're all doomed, you're all doomed." And then she was going to explode. But I ended up on the editing room floor. So now I'm just like in the background where I'm just sitting on the floor like this.
You're in the deleted scene.
It looks like me though. You can see the hair. Like,
It's funny.
I was in an episode of Daria.
So cool.
Were you in an episode of Daria?
What?
Yeah, there was a cartoon version of me. So if you go to I Loathe the Parade, the one where she goes to the parade. And by the way, that was a really hard scene because I was a layout artist on Daria, so every single scene had like 30 characters, all doing different things like waving and going like this and holding balloons. So at one point you could see me standing in the audience.
That's funny. And did you work on Daria through the end of the series, or like was it always?
I worked on season 4, and then the producer decided she didn't like me, so at the end of season 4 I was like I was let go. And I don't really, it's funny because a few years ago I didn't talk about it, but now I did talk about it because I'm like, look, I'm really grateful to have had the experience, but like it's sort of like the producer for whatever reason decided she didn't like me. So but then what was really funny, the reason I like to tell this story is I did finish out the season, and at the end of the season, instead of saying Merry Christmas, she was saying don't come back for the next season. And then, I very professionally shook her hand, and I said, thank you for having me. Because my mom taught me well. She said, never, always act professional, no matter the situation. I walked out of her office and turned a corner, and then I burst into tears. But then...
Yeah, good.
Yeah, out of sight. But then... a few minutes later, I run into my friend who was who was my producer on Courage the Cowardly Dog. I said, Barb, what are you doing here? She says, I'm a producer. We opened a new department called like MTV Commercials. Do you want a job? And I said, yeah, suddenly I have lots of time. So the following Monday, because MTV Animation used to be like a big cube, and like Daria was on this side, and you walk down the hallway, big cube with cubicles filling in the middle. And on the other side, a show called Celebrity Deathmatch. At a show called
Downtown.
Of
course.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you remember Downtown, and then there was MTV Animation.
Yeah.
And I used to sneak over and watch them shooting Downtown. You'd see the sets were like massive, and they'd be filming like, remember, that's probably why I got fired, because I was like, never did any work. I was always over there watching. No, I was kidding. I did a lot of work. So then that following Monday, I'm sitting at my cubicle in MTV Animation working on a commercial, and the producer that let me go walks by, and she looks at me like kind of like, what are you still doing here? I thought I fired you. And I looked up and I said, good morning. And I went back.
Funny.
Nice.
And she just looked at me and she was like, and she like stormed away. And I knew she was probably going to find my producer and be like, why is she here? And then every morning, every single time I saw her, I was really pleasant. I was like, good morning. And I just kept it moving. Because I don't have the energy. And this is like a good lesson. I tell this to my students a lot. And I get asked a few times a year to speak at colleges and different things. And I'm like, man, you don't even have the energy. Don't expend energy like hating on haters. I'm just like, yo, kill them with kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I think she was about to ask. I think she was about to ask me back, but then the studio got shut down after 9/11 happened because nobody wanted to spend money on animation. So suddenly it's like, oh, sorry, it's not happening. I was like,
wow,
whoa, that's pretty heavy. Anyway.
Pilar, how many cartoons do you currently watch?
Oh man, lately I've been watching like Netflix up the wazoo, man. I've been watching Disenchantment.
Disenchanted.
Disenchanted.
Oh, we love that.
Love Disenchanted.
It's like if you love like The Simpsons because they have like the similar humor, of course, and the look, but you also like fantasy-based things, and it even has all the same things that I love, that whole medieval fantasy vibe and all.
Oh yeah. And it's very serial too, that one. It's not like Futurama where every episode, Futurama's Joe and I love that one. But it's not like quite like that where every episode is a standalone. Disenchantment is you got to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, episodes don't end. It's all one continuous story, which is really interesting for an animated series.
And don't say anything about that. I still have 2 more episodes to watch. Ha!
No, I won't. Yes.
And oh God, you know what else I'm completely obsessed with? DuckTales. I mean, I love the old version of DuckTales, but I'm talking about the new version that came out.
Yep.
And it's just like, I was a little skeptical. I was like, because I'm a huge fan of like the original. I mean, I literally have the DVD set right here. Like
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I was a little nervous, but it's really true to the original series.
Yeah.
Not only is it true to the original series, it's really true to the original Carl Barks comic.
Yep.
With the adventures of Uncle Scrooge.
Inspiration.
Yeah, the life and times of Uncle Scrooge.
Yeah.
And it's really true. Those of you that so you guys might know the Disney Afternoon, so it's true to that because you
all Disney Afternoon all the time.
Yeah, well then they make nods to it all the time. They made nods to Tailspin. They make nods to Darkwing Duck. They actually, in one episode, made a really subtle nod to the Gummy Bears.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There was like
amazing.
where this one character like got a hold of gummy berries and made gummy berry juice, and they said we got it. We found out where they're being grown because they're like these ancient creatures, and I was like screaming, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, they're making it all canon. They're making all of that canon. I know Matt and I were talking about the other day. They just made the Goofy movie and Goof Troop.
Goofy movie, Rescue Rangers.
Rescue Rangers was just referenced.
Wait, I'm not up there yet, but oh my God, don't spoil too much.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. But
They mentioned
it's
Rescue
very,
Rangers.
very good.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just,
it was
says
great.
a lot that people are taking animation more seriously now. It kind of relates back to our episode from last week, where we're talking about collectors and how people relate to these brands. But like, it used to be that animation was like kind of seen as like silly or childish, but now the way that they sort of serialize these stories and like DuckTales is a great example where they go to some serious places. I mean, and they're able to touch on things that you've always wanted them to touch on, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie's parentage and things like that. And it's like,
Don't say
I
anything
guess
about
I never
Bella
thought
Duck. I'm not
about
up there
that.
yet, but yeah.
No, I won't, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, the fact that they touch on those things makes you feel like it's a more legitimate
That whole thing with
way of
magic, the
storytelling.
spell, and the girl, what is her name? That's like that.
Yeah.
Someone told me, I read somewhere that that's like a metaphor for child abuse. And she's like, you know, like the only reason I'm being this way is because you're being difficult. And I'm like, oh God, that's so deep and it's so true. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, but they could do that in animation. They do that. It's becoming a really advanced form of media now,
It's so good.
It's kind of,
and by the way,
yeah.
the only reason I was able to get into it now and I couldn't get into it before this is because I recently got Disney Plus and all the episodes were on there, and I was just immediately like, oh God, must watch them, must watch all of them.
Yeah.
So those are like the two main cartoons I'm watching right now. It's like DuckTales and Disenchanted. Yeah. Although it's funny because I was talking to my my director and my mentor. He asked me like, would you consider, because they were asking me like where I thought I saw the Snozzlewinks going, like what are next steps for you after you graduate, after you put out a comic, and do you want to do it as a animated television show? And I'm like, there was a time when all I wanted was a Snozzlewinks TV show, but right now there's something tangible. Is there something like we were talking about with the puppet? There's something tangible about being able to hold a book in your hands, and me seeing people reading my book, and I just want to enjoy this for a while. And if for some reason someone comes up and gives me $1 million, but that's the other thing. I know so many animators that got pilot orders. Pilots, which is basically like the first episode of a show. Sometimes they'll only order a pilot. I'm saying it like you guys don't know.
No, but that's you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right
I was doing
thing.
for the benefit of the viewing audience. But anyway,
sure.
They'll say, "Oh, here's a budget to do a pilot," and they'll work for months and months on this pilot with the company, and then the company decides not to pick up the pilot after they've been working on it for 9 months, and then what happens is it just sits in a closet for 2 years. They own it. You can't just be like, oh, can I just take my pilot and submit it to festivals now? Or can I take my pilot and like shop it around, or at least do it like, and then submit it to some festivals? Nope. Not only did they waste your time for almost a year, they now own it. And
that's crazy.
But I hear that after 2 years, they hold on to it for 2 years, and after 2 years, then they release it to you. But it's like, I'm not interested in that. And then they're going to ask you to change stuff and stuff like that. So I kind of want to get to the point where I have enough clout behind my idea, like Jeff Smith does with Bone, and is in a million years, you know.
Right, you have creative control over your characters.
So it's crossed.
Yeah.
How many recurring characters are there in the Snozzlewinks?
Well, this is like the first story, and they're all. I never had a little girl. That's Stella in the middle there, and in my stories, I never had a little girl. I've always just been like in the world. I never even thought about human interaction. But then I was thinking, if we were seeing them for the first time, I would love it to be through the eyes of another person to kind of introduce you to the characters. But I have ideas for a story with her and all the characters, just like the bad guy, the evil tag-off. Well, you kind of see his hat. He has a kind of as a Viking hat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, at the bottom.
I was like, actually, all of this is on my Instagram. If you followed me at Snuzzlewinks World on Instagram.
Ah, there you go. We're gonna throw that in the show notes, and we'll recap.
Oh yeah.
Hey, would you guys like to play our first game?
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
God.
Yeah, we're good.
Sounds good.
Should we
I'm
start with
excited.
the rating game? Because I think the better game is going to be when Pilar draws
God.
later.
Yes, let's start with the rating game.
Oh
Okay.
God.
Okay, so Pilar, we're going to play a game we play with every guest called the rating game, which is where you rate the following list of things.
Oh God.
However you want to rate them, you can rate them in Snozzlewinks if you
Yeah,
want.
how many
1 to 10.
Snozzlewinks?
1 to 10, okay?
How many snoz crabs do you give?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Okay. All right, so John and I are going to ask you to rate the following cartoon things.
Yes.
Okay? John, do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay, ready? Pilar, how do you rate the following? Painting a tunnel on a wall and then going through it.
Oh, one snoz on a scale of 1 snozcrab to 5 snozcrabs, 5 being the best.
Yeah.
I would say basically, that's definitely 5 snozcrabs, because how cool would it be
We
if
like
you
that.
paint the tunnel, then you can go through it with magical painting paint like they had, like Roger
Yeah.
Rabbit had it. It's like, what?
Some good
Yes.
Tex Avery style action there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to also point out all of the things we're going to list. Joe has done and does do on a regular basis.
Oh, yay!
That sounds about right.
Yeah, Joe's about as close to a Looney Tune as exists.
Oh, that's so cool.
I can picture Joe just having a closet full of signs with crudely painted things on them. Like,
100%.
Goodbye. Like,
What
Yes.
is it?
Acme
Definitely.
boxes,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
an anvil.
That's awesome.
And just
Yep.
to point out, so me and John, we have our own language. I would say we don't speak in words. We just speak in sounds and ridiculous
Yeah.
words. I say. I think it's safe to say we're gonna use the word snozzlewink plenty of times.
I think Joe and I are going to refer to each other as snozzlewinks from this time
Yes.
forward.
No question.
Oh my God.
I listen to their phone calls all the time.
I'm
That's
definitely
absolutely
going to get a phone
happening.
call from either Frank or Joe tomorrow. It's going to go, hey, what's going on, snozzlewink?
100%.
That is
100%.
100%. Absolutely.
Hey, I might
Accurate,
start a
yes.
thing where I'm like, draw you as a snozzlewink. So don't
There
be
you go.
surprised.
I'm
There
for
you
it.
go. Well, Frank, did I tell you Joe the other day yelled at me? I called him and I said, hey, what's going on? Whatever. And he goes, can't you just answer the phone? Hello.
Nope, we don't do that.
Just say hello.
We say, "What's going on?" and then you say a word or a phrase or a,
Yes.
Whatever's
you
in
know.
your head.
like Pilar.
Um,
I might call John tomorrow and be like, "What's going on, Pilar Newton?" And that's
Oh,
normal
you
for us.
100%
That
do
is
that.
amazing.
That is a guarantee.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
All right, here we go. Here's another one. We're going to rate it in Snozcraft. Running off a cliff and getting a few more steps in before dropping straight down. Bonus points if you pull out the sign that says goodbye and then go all the way down.
Well, see, I'm going to give that 3 Snozcrafts because the reason you fall is because your dumbass looked down.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right. If you
Oh,
didn't look
right.
down, you would never fall.
You know, that's very biblical. You know, when Jesus, when he was in the water and Jesus said, "Look at me, don't look at the water." When he looked at the water, he sank. Okay.
Yep, and he held up a sign that said, not again. And went right in.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the part they edited out of the Bible. Like, okay, not again.
Yeah, they took that out. Yeah.
The gospel according to Snozzlewink. All right. Pilar, how do you rate the cartoon thing of having 4 fingers?
You know, that's confusing as hell, and it's even confusing in my. As a little caveat, like my characters have like 4 fingers, but the humans have 5 fingers. But sometimes the humans only have 3 fingers. So I'm gonna say 3 Snozcrafts because it's confusing.
Do you ever get lazy and say, I'm just not going to draw all 5 fingers? I mean, I'm not an artist, and anytime I draw a character, by the time I get to the hands, literally one character, I've done the head. By the time I get to the hands, I'm like, I don't need to do all the fingers.
Oh,
I'm just going to do a mitten and put some lines on it.
Oh yeah, like just draw like mitts, you know.
Yeah.
I did that I did that like last night. I was working on a page, and I was like, it was supposed to be like 5 pages. I just said, screw it, and it was 3.
Yeah, listen. And I always often wonder, what finger is it they're missing? Like, what if Mickey Mouse just has no thumbs and just is all just this?
It's always the thumbs. I think it's the ring finger.
You think they're missing a ring finger?
I mean, see,
Yeah.
he can't give the middle finger. I always thought it was the pinky they were missing.
Oh,
Could be the pinky.
See, but I think that the
No.
last one is always short.
I
Oh,
agree. I think
yeah.
it's
No,
I think it's the
It's
index.
the neither. What they do is actually it's an old
No,
animation tool.
I think it's the ring.
You know, I think you're right, but actually an old animation tool is that to simplify things and make it easier, they actually combine the middle and the ring finger. So like therefore it was just like easier to draw when you just combine the middle and the ring finger. And so
that makes so much
It's
sense.
both.
Yep, that feels right.
Yep.
That feels like that's what
yeah,
it is.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Unless
Very
you're a Teenage
interesting.
Mutant Ninja Turtle, then you have like 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Right, then you got, yeah.
Like Lobster Boy.
Yes.
Who's this? Is this me or you, Frank?
That's you.
Okay. Backgrounds that scroll by with the same buildings.
I was literally just talking to somebody about that yesterday, about like cutting corners on like drawing my backgrounds, which is like backgrounds like the most challenging thing for me. So I'm definitely going to give that 5 Snozcrafts because the resourcefulness is great and it makes it kudos. They get even more points for the fact that we notice it's the same building because that makes it even funnier.
Yeah. Well, I also like when I watch some animation and I notice that the backgrounds are like non-distinct rectangles, so it can always just kind of be the same rectangular shape over and over again without having to say it's repeated because it's obvious it's repeated.
Right.
That's an interesting tactic.
So we can just be like, oh, that's just another rectangle that looks the same.
Right, exactly. All right, Frank, you got
All right.
one?
Pilar, what do you think about negligible mouth moving?
What?
Oh.
Wait. You mean like bad lip syncing?
Yeah, I mean, look, the human mouth has to do so many movements to actually speak, but in a cartoon, it's usually kind of just...
Oh, yeah, no, especially it depends on the cartoon. Like some of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, it was just like...
Yeah.
Or especially if you look at old dubbed like anime, in the Japanese animation, like it's really, really hard to lip sync Japanese. It's just like way too many syllables. So if you look at old dubbed anime, which was originally done in English, we're talking about like Battle of the Planets, Robotech. Oh God, what's another one? Remember that
Matt, this is when we need you, Matt. This is when we need you to say something.
What do we say? Battle of the Planets, Robotech.
Do you remember the old the Little Prince cartoons? More and more people are coming forward saying that they remember that cartoon.
Yes. But all of those old anime, when they dubbed them, it was done in like someone's broom closet.
Yeah.
And it was mostly like radio people, so they didn't really worry about the lip flaps.
If you see it in Japanese, though, it'll still be like...
Yeah, no, it doesn't match up.
Well, it's funny. I could speak to that as well, because in puppetry, you choose your syllables, right? So you choose what sound is going to be most prevalent, and you kind of lean into that one, and you kind of skip every other syllable, because you can't move fast enough to catch all of them. It's just not gonna work. So I imagine in animation it's kind of the same way. Like if someone's gonna make an O sound, that's the one that you're gonna go for, because that's the one you're gonna see.
I say 4 snoz crabs for the lip sync.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just realized I never answered your question. I was like, what?
So
We also forgot.
why? Okay. Why do cartoon cakes always look so damn good?
Oh, now is this do I answer this, or do I answer this with snoz crabs?
It doesn't
Answer it
matter.
with snoz crabs, and then answer the question.
I say, well, anything with cake is 5 snoz crabs. But
Great. Okay, good. That's a good
I think
answer.
that like maybe they're just drawn to look like what the animator wants to be eating at the time.
Ah, that's interesting.
I always picture them with pink frosting. Does anyone else?
Of course,
Yes.
of course.
Exclusively
White and pink.
pink frosting. That's
White and
it.
pink.
Yeah, like sloppy at the top.
Yeah.
It's like dripping down.
It's always
Yep. Yep.
You know who was? Oh, this is totally different. But cartoon pizza that looks really good, without a doubt. In a Goofy movie, best cartoon pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the cheese. Yeah.
The
A lot
melted
of flop.
cheese.
A lot of flop on
Yes.
that slice,
Oh my
though.
God.
Yeah.
You
So
tell
I
me.
want to ask you quick. I'm going to ask you. This is a speed round, and Matt knows a lot about this, and Matt knows I have strong feelings about this. You seem to be a little bit familiar with anime, a little bit.
Oh yeah, well, this especially like anything from the mid to late '90s, and even like the late '80s.
Great.
I just did nothing but watch anime like all through college. Like it's literally.
Oh, good. So you know. So real quick, give me a 1 to 5. I'm gonna shoot off some anime reactions that are nothing like real life reactions, and I don't know where they got them from. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed. For some reason, my nose is gone and is replaced with blue. What is that?
Definitely like 5 snoz crabs because that's just so iconic.
I hate
So
it.
But-
good.
And then there's like, how about like when their eyes disappear along with their nose?
Yep. Everything goes away. Hate it. Next one.
So good.
Oh, here I'm so nervous. One giant sweat drop.
Yes.
I'm out.
You know that and the big vein in the forehead
Yep.
that looks like 4 lines. And I try to. I'm gonna give that 1 snoz crab. You know why? Because I'm tired of my students using that as a crutch instead of drawing like real facial expression. They'll just put like the big drop. And actually, I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I'll just be like draw like, and it's an emoji now.
I can't with that.
And I tell my students, I'm like, draw the actual expression. Don't just draw a big drop. It drives you crazy.
How about the fact
But I
that
think it's really funny how then it would just like tween down like.
yeah. Nobody in an anime is ever on the floor. Whenever they fall over, it's just completely their whole body is this way. Just arms
Yes!
and leg this way. They're not on the floor. I don't know what that is. I also should have mentioned at the beginning that I hate anime and I can't even look at it. They could be the best show ever. And like I can't like what's the one you want me to watch?
Oh, Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan. Great story.
I still have yet to see it.
Great story. I started watching it. Can't get past it. You want me to take it seriously, and then they're like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "No, I'm out. I'm out."
Although my favorite reaction is like the bad guy always goes, "Nani,
Yes.
Nandato."
What is happening with that?
And then it goes soul, which is damn. And it's always like the captain on a bridge, like Nandato.
Yeah. I can't.
I wish
I think
people could see this
soul
right
is
now.
like, yeah, but and sometimes I react that way. Like I'll be talking to someone, and they'll be like, tell me something really shocking. I'll go, Nani? And they're like, wait, what did you just say? And I'm like, oh, I forgot. I'm not hanging out with animators. I'll be in like a faculty meeting at City College, and I would spit it out like, oh, never mind, sorry.
Well, that's what happens with Matt. Matt, we've been best friends for 25 years. And Matt loves anime so much that I have had to get used to it, because now anytime I say anything to him that he doesn't know the answer to, he'll just look at me and go, and rub the back of his head. And I can't.
But what do you think about, actually, I'll ask Matt, what do you think about like things like Battle of the Planets where they'll like change stuff to edit out all the deaths? Like so many people were having like their heads chopped off. Like Kiap cussed so much, he just beeps but he was all cusses.
It's a product of the times thing, I think.
But that made it part of it though, like Seven Dark Seven.
It did. But
and then like cheesy like 70s music.
Voltron was the other one, right? Like they changed a lot from Japanese to American. So
yeah, because didn't Lance disappeared, his twin brother showed up later or something, but Lance actually died in this. Was it Lance or Sven?
Sven
disappeared. But then he somehow came back later, but I think he actually had died.
Yeah, in the Japanese version, one of them dies, and then their brother or cousin comes in later. And in the American version, they just said, no, he's not dead. He was in the hospital. This is him.
Hey, Pilar. Hey, Pilar, Matt, thanks for helping us to lose 100 listeners in that 30 seconds. Awesome, guys. Thank you.
My only job on the podcast.
Last week was the collector's episode, and my mom called me and said, it was a good episode. It's that you guys are interested in that. It's not really for me. She said, it's not really for me. I want to say, Mom, it's safe to go. It's safe to go now, Mom. No.
Okay, shutting up about anime. All right.
I want to give you the last one.
Huh?
Huh? Okay, here's the last one, Pilar. Please rate the following thing.
Oh, God.
The detail in a Pixar movie is so hyper-realistic. Those animators must be assholes, huh? Because if you're going to do it like that, just make an actual movie.
Oh,
Because what? Because why? Look at the reflection on the linoleum. Hey, you know what also has reflection on linoleum? Actual linoleum. Make a movie. Make a film. Use a camera.
Wait a minute. How are they going to get a talking fish?
Right, that's true.
Who? Ellen? No, that's not Ellen. No, that's
Do like the old days. Put peanut butter in its mouth.
How are they going to get a big furry monster? Well, it could be a puppet. Okay, listen.
Yeah.
Let me just add something real fast. I saw Onward a couple of weeks ago, and I loved it.
Haven't seen it
No
yet.
spoilers. No. But I was literally saying to someone, for that particular movie, this could have been a live action movie. It really could have been. But 99.9% of the time, I could see why it's animated, because Pixar pushes. I'm kind of biased because I'm like friends with the producers there and stuff.
Right.
But don't worry, no one's getting in trouble.
We love Pixar.
But
We love Pixar. We love Pixar.
Pixar's not Uncanny Valley, though. You know what's Uncanny Valley, where it's like, why? Just why? Like, Frank, what you were saying? Like, the studio that did Polar Express. I love Polar Express. Yeah. But, like, if you see, like, Mars Needs Moms, you start getting into, like, this Uncanny Valley where they started to make the characters look so realistic.
Weird.
No one was interested in watching it.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, per what you said, Frank, I feel like if it's too realistic, no one's going to want to watch it. People are, like, coming. That's why Pixar stuff, even though the details look super realistic, the characters are cartoony enough. However, a movie that did not do well, I don't think, it was like probably the least favorite Pixar movie was least popular, was Dinosaur.
Good
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I think it had something to do with the fact that even though the character was really cartoony, like almost like Saturday morning cartoon, but the backgrounds looked like photographs.
Yes.
And it wasn't stylized enough. And Frank, what you said, that can be applied to that. It was just sort of like, why? if the character is that stylized, and stylize the background.
Right.
Yeah, because when we think cartoon, like in my head, I think of like what's behind you right now in your background. Like that grass is purple. There's not even any tone to it. It's just purple, right? Like that style makes me feel like I'm watching a cartoon. I think it really blurs the line when it's a hyper realistic cartoon, because then I can't wrap my head around it.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like, check out, just watch a clip of Mars Needs Moms. I liked
I can't
Polar
believe we're
Express.
mentioning Mars Needs Moms on this podcast. I can't believe it took us 28 episodes to do it even.
You're listening to the Mars Needs Mom podcast, Mom.
But Google, like, when you get a chance, Google the, like, I know, right? Google, like, the Uncanny Valley, because you get to a point where it's too realistic and people just stop being interested in it.
Like, also, it's Robert Zemeckis, I mean, did Polar Express, but also he did the Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey.
And I wasn't interested in
It's
that. I was
weird
like,
because it's trying to look real, and it's almost like animatronics, for me, animatronics of humans. This is getting into a deep hole. But I have a fear of like the animatronics and like Pirates of the Caribbean, because you're trying to look human, but there's just something about you that's not human. And that's the same thing about that kind of animation, is that I think it's just a little too, this is just to my taste, obviously, just a little too photorealistic, right? I mean, the point of animation is so you could do something fantastical.
yeah, and nobody was interested.
Right.
That's why Mars Needs Moms. I don't know how, it's the same director, Robert Zemeckis is both. And I love Robert Zemeckis. He had something, didn't he have something to do with Roger Rabbit?
He directed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's wrong with me? I know that Richard Williams directed the animation,
Mhm.
but the actual director of the whole thing was Zemeckis. So he's amazing, but I guess he just went a little overboard.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you try, and also we were at a time that all of those movies came out. Just to be, we got to be fair on the other side, that technology was just starting to kind of come forward in that way. So like, Zemeckis has always been at the forefront of trying to push what a movie can do. And so like, you know, whether or not it worked at the time or works now, you got to give credit where it's due. Like using that, Mars Needs Moms was also all motion capture. It was, so that movie was all like, because I was watching, again, when I worked at Disney, watching a lot of the behind the scenes features, and you could watch the bonus features of their faces grafted on there, of the actors' faces with the cameras grafted on there. So like that was just trying to do some new stuff, but didn't really work.
Not to bring this up again. This is like the third episode I think we're talking about it. But like smell-o-vision and things like that in the theaters, right?
Yeah.
This is similar. It's like, no, we know this is fake. We want it to be fake. Stop trying to make it too real, because I feel like it's the same thing. It's basically smell-o-vision.
Although, interestingly enough, I was skeptical when I heard that Happy Feet was motion capture, and then I finally saw it like years after it'd been in the theater, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It was incredible. Still one of my favorite movies.
I love Happy
period.
Feet. It's really, really good.
So cute.
And I feel like, I guess, where are they going to get a tap dancing penguin, you know?
Yeah. Well, Joe was busy that day. Joe would have done.
Right.
True.
Obviously.
Right.
Hey, can we do the second game? I'm really itching to see these drawings.
Yes.
Snap.
Before we get into the
Now
second
I'm nervous.
game, before we get into the second game, I wanted to talk, or have Danielle kind of bring up a little bit, just some of your techniques, because we didn't really get to talk about you and how you got where you are as an animator and where your interest in it came from. But I think we could see that, right? Just by hearing this interview and seeing you and hearing your passion for it, we know what that is. We know where your passion came from. So what is I want to turn it over to Danielle a little bit to ask a little bit about your methods of how you do what you do, because I think that's a big question for a lot of people. They don't necessarily know what goes into animation, especially now.
Yeah. I mean, you basically asked the question, but so I know that you did a lot of sketches. So obviously you started from a pencil in the beginning, right? And then where did it stem to from there?
Well, I was, you mean just like over time, like what I was using? Because I was classically trained. So at Rhode Island School of Design, I did everything traditionally. I shot everything one drawing at a time on film.
Wow.
Edited everything. And then, so I was doing everything on paper. Courage the Cowardly Dog, everything was on paper and then scanned in and colored digitally, but I just did the drawings. I didn't color it. Daria, I was on Daria the first year that they started coloring digitally. So even though layout was still done on paper, it was then Xeroxed onto cells and then painted.
What does the layout artist do?
The layout artist takes a storyboard, and storyboard is basically you take the script and you write out like the scene, basically the scene beats. You storyboard out the scene beats, and a director might give you a marked up script that says, okay, and this line have this be a medium shot of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, this part have it be a close up. This part have it be a wide shot. Break up this sentence, and then they would actually have us like break up the sentences into acting. So Daria, we got like a lot of scripts with post-it notes all over them saying like, okay, you have like one line, but you might want to have like Daria go like this, and then maybe shrug, and then maybe like lower her head at this part. And then it was done on paper, but then colored digitally. So the first year it was digitally. Hope I answered that.
Yeah, what? I don't even know the programs that you use for that kind of stuff. I'm just so curious.
Well, back then I guess it was Photoshop, but now I animate now. Like since 2004, I've been working in Flash. Except this Adobe Animate, it's not Flash. So I know people say, "Oh, Flash is dead." It's basically Flash. It's just they changed the name to Adobe Animate, and I still call it Flash when I teach. Every animator calls it Flash. Like a lot of like professional animators, they still call it Flash. But I use Adobe Flash, Adobe Animate. See, I'm doing it again. And what I love about Flash is that you could just draw Adobe Animate. You could just draw directly into the program. And a lot of studios like still use Flash. Titmouse, Chris Manowski's studio, they use Flash. A lot of studios like My Little Pony, like first few seasons was done on Flash. So now like I'm all about Flash. So there's also Toon Boom and TV Paint, and it's all digital now.
That's so cool.
But I'll still sketch out stuff on paper. Oh yeah, what's up?
Pilar, what do you think about the Disney animator who hid dirty porno things in the cartoons?
I love it. I used to hide toilets in all of my. If I did a storyboard panel, I would hide like a toilet in the background. If there was like a cluttered background somehow, and a couple of them made it in. I have this thing. I don't know why I would hide a toilet. I love anytime you could hide something and like get away with it. It's great. Like for instance, a scene. It might be like hearsay, but when Simba kicks up a cloud of dust, apparently it spells the word sex.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be like a coincidence. Although apparently in The Rescuers, there's a scene where they're flying past the window. I think there's like a naked lady, but they edited it out.
There. That's a photo of it.
So that's from the original cut of The Rescuers.
And the Little
But what
Mermaid
about
has one.
like what about the penises on the poster?
That's on the first.
That was there too.
The original cover of like the first released Little Mermaid. Yeah.
And also, when the priest is marrying Ursula and Prince Eric, his penis is moving.
That is
in his pants.
100% there.
It's 100%.
That is 100%
there.
Yes,
So his book is moving up and down.
No, they say it's his knee, and it's a lie. It is absolutely
his
boner.
Penis. Yeah.
I have seen that so many times.
And
Once I
also,
found that, I was like, I needed to know, and I have the old Little Mermaid.
Now I gotta look. I know like Ursula, like she definitely has like some bouncy boobs.
Oh no, totally. But
this is worse.
The boner.
She's adorable. I love it. She's sexy as hell. I love
There's two
her.
shots of it. There's two shots of it. It's when they're getting married at the
All right,
end.
now I get it. When I hang up, I'm gonna just look.
And also in Aladdin, the tiger, what's his name, Raja?
I don't believe that one.
I've heard it. He
Yeah,
sits
I've heard
down
it
and
too.
100%.
he says sex or something like that, right?
No.
He says take off your
Take
clothes.
off
Good
your
little
clothes.
girls, take off your clothes.
Yes, that's true.
Come on.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's
That's almost as bad as like the Wizard of Oz myth that one of the Munchkins hung themselves in the background.
It's a bird.
I debunked it. It's a bird, but I used to believe it.
Yeah. People
That
wanna
like
believe
someone
these
did
things.
kill themselves.
I've heard
on
these
set.
things.
Yeah, Paul McCartney's
Okay.
dead also, guys.
Okay, wait a minute. If you're going to say we know that the animator, they put a penis on the cover of the VHS because that's there.
Correct.
Why wouldn't
I
there be
have
other
it.
things in there?
No, that's true. I just didn't know about the peanut. The
It's
priest and the
amazing.
penis.
I
I'll
really
say
hope
it.
you find it.
Those
It's so
penises-
funny.
I'm going to find it right now.
Just completely unrelated. There's someone literally showed me that if you look at a bottle of like Budweiser with condensation dripping down it, and like they hide penises all over the place in advertising because it's subconscious.
Yeah, that I believe.
Yep, totally.
So someone literally like sat me down and pointed at every single drop of water dripping down the can.
Wow.
They're real drops of water, but they photoshopped them to, like they're penises.
Wow. Well, all I'm saying
and I was like, what?
You better be careful with those snoz crabs.
That's so funny.
I know. And you know, can I tell you something? Like the whole time I was writing, like I'm working on like a 100-page graphic novel, and there's so many times where I had to actually be really careful when I wrote something so it wouldn't be phallic.
Sure, of course.
Because first of all, the word schnoz is actually like a Yiddish word for like you know what? Like but so I had to actually like be super careful to not have something come across or sound phallic,
of course,
or even like look phallic. Like even their noses, I like every time I draw their noses, I have to make sure that they don't look like too phallic, you know?
Right, of course.
I didn't see like I've seen stuff and other stuff, and actually that we were just seeing what we can get away with.
Right.
It was the first season of a show. We were starting something big, and we are like, what could we get away with?
So what did you get away with? What was one thing on Courage you got away with?
Well, there were some things on the show that were just gross.
Yes.
And John put them in, and it was like almost suggestive, like the mouth of the spider. And then you get up close, and it looks like a female.
Let me ask you, this is a good segue into a question I have for you. Why was I afraid of Courage the Cowardly Dog growing up? Was that by design?
I've had students come up to me and like start crying. Like I've literally had students like it just I've literally had students come up to me like in tears saying, but in a good way, they're like, oh my God, I was so terrified of this show, but I also loved it. I can't believe I'm being so nice.
Yeah.
And it just has like this visceral, again with the visceral reaction. It was just creepy, and they weren't afraid to be.
It was creepy. It was creepy.
Like Freaky Fred, you could never do that nowadays. Freaky Fred, like it was almost like this like pervy like cousin that visits, just saves Kurt.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And but I mean, there's nothing like sexual, but like nowadays it would never taken the wrong way.
But it would never be on Cartoon Network now. I'm assuming, like, I don't think so.
I feel like they wouldn't get away with it now, but it's so great.
I just have one more question. We got a sneak peek of your like desk, but I just sort of wanted to know like what do you use, like what tools you use now?
I mean, basically this pen, this stylus.
That's for the Cintiq, right? I've used it once a long time ago. It's amazing.
And this Cintiq, I bought this Cintiq back in 2007 secondhand for like $1,000 from a friend of mine, and he himself had it for a few years, so God knows when this thing's from. But they're usually $3,000.
Yeah,
this thing is indestructible. Like I've had it 2017. What is that, like 15 years now, or
2007 or 2017?
My bad, sorry, 2007. So that's
13.
So I've had this thing 13 years, no sign of going down. And actually, they don't even make the 21-inch anymore. The 24-inch you can get for if you have $3,400 lying around.
Oh, good.
But they made some. Yeah, cool. But like a few weeks ago, like I saw like red stripes on the scene, and I'm like, oh no, I don't have $3,500. But they actually have. That's fine. It was the wire, but there were some. They have cheaper versions. They have like slightly smaller ones. Like you can get like the 15-inch for like $1,200. It's less.
So you use that for everything? Like you don't use an iPad or anything like that?
I actually do. My iPad, I have an iPad Pro. I didn't get I got the 11-inch because I thought the 12-inch was too much to carry around.
Yeah, that's huge.
But I 100% use the iPad Pro for my graphic novel, and I work in Clip Studio Paint. And Clip Studio Paint is awesome because they create the word balloons and the panels for you, and you could tweak the word balloons and make them your own.
That's awesome.
And you could use all kinds of pens, and it's so great. So this iPad's like 100%. I'm doing my comic on my iPad.
That's awesome. I was just really for me. I wanted to know all of these things.
No, I mean, listen. I mean,
cool.
People who are listening could be potential animators, could be people who just are interested in it, could be fellow artists like yourself, you know. Who...
And guess what? I thumbnailed out this whole comic in a sketch pad. I just did it in paper. I thumbnailed and wrote the whole comic in pencil. And each page was like that big.
Was that
like, 2 inches big?
Like, was that because of you wanting to do that, or was that something that like the MFA program like asked you to do? I'm always curious because a lot of people talk about, you know, always having to stay with paper, and some people just don't work like that. So I was just curious. No,
you know, actually, they're very interested in us developing our own process.
That's cool. That's really important.
And yeah. And it's so they'll even ask, okay, what's your process and stuff. So no, I create better when I'm thumbnailing it out in pencil, and then I can then expand it, like scan it in, and then like you know.
Yeah.
Go over it and like clean it up and stuff.
That's amazing.
Pilar, where do you teach?
I'm an assistant professor at the City College of New York, and I teach animation there.
Cool.
Do I have to have any background information, or can I just come take animation having never drawn anything in my whole life?
You know, I have students that have never drawn in their whole life, and by the end of the class, they're like making animations, you know? But it definitely helps to draw. Like,
it helps to have interest.
Yeah, I tell my students, like, I'm like, you could come in like not having drawn that much, but it definitely helps to know how to draw. And I don't understand how you're an art major and you can't draw, but that's okay. That's to know, and in particular, I'm talking about in the past. Right. My students are amazing. The Cuny Film Festival is coming up. So we have Cuny, the City University of New York. We're talking 24 campuses. We're talking Hunter, Queens College, Hostos, you name it, and mine. And the Cuny, of course, is going to be online. But my students submitted their work, and basically the runners-up for the animation category, like most of them are ours. Like, I just got word that I have at least 5 students that are nominated.
Are you proud? Are you a proud
That's so
mama?
awesome.
I am so proud. I love being there and cheering them on and seeing the looks on their faces, because there's usually a screening where they screen everything and then they don't announce the nominees until like the day before the award ceremony. And then just sitting in a room and like, oh, Professor, do I have to come? Yes. Seeing them being in an audience and seeing their work playing on a big screen in front of an audience, and just I'm looking over at them and seeing their reaction. I live for that moment, to see their reaction to seeing their work being shown. And I'm like one of my former students, like she's awesome. Lourdes a video, who I hire for everything now. She's doing all my book layout and design, by the way. She said she just graduated and doing internships, kicking ass. She said, Pilar, you're like the soccer mom of animation. And I was like, wait, I wasn't sure whether to take that as a compliment.
Pilar, you just gave away. Yeah, that's the name of the episode. There was the soccer mom about John, correct?
There it is.
There it is.
And it's true. And then I was like, wait, because I'm there, like cheering them on. And of course, so sometimes my students, they sometimes they're like, oh, Professor, they get like embarrassed. I
love it.
And I'll be at the screening, and then after the screening ends, I'll be like, these are my students. My students.
You're embarrassing.
Right here.
That's literally what you're doing, is embarrassing.
Yeah, soccer mom.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so cool that you're part of continuing on the legacy of animation, because it's something that I think needs to be nurtured, because it's such a daunting task. Like, to me, not being an artist, I look at animation, I'm like, I wouldn't even know where the hell to begin. So, like, the fact that not only are there people willing to learn
I don't know where to begin.
What was that?
I do animation and I don't know where the hell.
Right. Oh, but just the fact that there's people who are interested in it, and then there's a way for them to kind of cultivate that, and there's a support system like you to move them forward.
Just to give you an idea, like to freak out, like a couple of years ago, I got invited. Like Pixar had teachers from all over the country flown out for a conference. And I got to spend 2 days at Pixar learning their story process.
Wow.
And when I drove, I was in the my friend picked me up from my brother's house, and we drove there together. It's in Emeryville. My brother lives in Palo Alto, and driving under that gate that says Pixar, like onto the complex, it was just like emotional. I was like, oh my God, it was amazing.
So cool.
Is it like a dream though to like work there as an animator?
It is like Pixar. It's like if you work there as an animator, like you've arrived. And what's really cool is, I mean, well, I don't know what's going to happen whenever this gets better, whenever this is, Lord willing, whenever it can safely get better. Yeah, like it's like getting a job there. It's like you're pretty like secure because it's like one film after the other.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't, and then between films, providing there is a break between films, and there usually isn't, they actually have like people like you could do a film if you want. And have you checked out any of the Sparks shorts?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's basically like a think tank of like animator, like directors. A lot of them are women. Like it was like did you ever see, if you check out Kitbull, about the kitten that makes friends with the dog, with the pit bull, and
I've heard of it.
and then check out Pearl, which is about it's very obviously a metaphor for a woman like working in the workplace, challenges a woman working in the workplace, and toxic environments that like toxic masculinity can create for women. But it's a metaphor. Oh my God, they're so good.
So just to wrap up a bit, I think what speaks to me most about you is your passion for doing what you love, which is pretty cool. I mean, the fact that you grew up loving animation, you do it, and it's part of your livelihood. You've made it part of what you love. I mean, Danielle could speak more to that, being an artist and like being able to do what you're good at and love it and like make it part of your life is pretty impressive, I think.
It's your purpose.
Well, I really feel that way, and I kind of felt like it was I kind of felt like animation was my purpose, but even more lately I've been feeling like teaching animation is my purpose, because it's like 1,000 times more powerful to have a student sit down on the first day of class and do animation and just seeing their whole demeanor change.
Right.
And maybe a lot of them aren't used to getting praise. These are college students, and I'll go like, wow, that's really great. That's awesome. And they're like, really? Like almost like they're expecting the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, and their whole demeanor changes when I walk into my room and I mean it, like I'll give critiques. Like I'll tell them I'll say, oh, that could be improved. I'm not phony about it. Like I mean it. And
You know what they say, Pilar? Those who can teach, those who can't teach Jim. Same paycheck.
I love it.
Same
That's
paycheck.
classic. Well, Frank, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Danielle?
I don't think so. Pilar, you delivered as expected. You're a ball of energy. You're super interesting. You're so much fun. And I'm glad I shared my fried rice with you a couple years ago.
Listen, I meant it. As second things become more or less normal again, or at least something resembling normal, ramen date. I'm telling you.
Let's do it. 100%. We can all go.
Yeah.
And all of you, like, friend me, Facebook,
Yeah,
Instagram,
definitely.
follow you, all that. Just give me all your Instagram info too, and everything.
Why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you on the socials, as it were?
Well, you can check me out on Instagram, either my main Instagram, Pilar Toons, PILARTOONS. But if you want to get like regular updates on my upcoming graphic novels, you can check me out at Snozzlewinks World, SNOZZLE Winks World. I'm also on, I also have a Snozzlewinks World Facebook page. You can hit me up there, and also on Twitter at Pilar Toons. But I'm on Instagram like the most, and I'm posting all the time, posting my art. And I'm not one of those like people where I'm like, look at me, I'm all fancy. Like people follow me, I follow them back, and I'm interested in people out there.
Great.
A lot of my followers are teenagers, actually, like aspiring
That's
artists.
funny. So are Joe's.
No, well, I'll tell you, I have 3 young nephews and a young niece who spend all their time just drawing the things they see in the books, like the Captain Underpants and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Dogman, those kind of books, and they just spend all day drawing and getting better. And every time they send us things they've done, they're better and better. So like these things you're creating are inspiring. You know, it's kind of children flock to that, and I think it's so important. So like, especially that's why you're like, oh, teenagers follow you. It's probably because they like to try to see if they can do it, and like, you know, and then they get to you in the college age, and you teach them how.
I'm psyched. And then tell you said your nephews, your nieces and nephews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my nieces and nephews. Yeah.
Tell your nieces and nephews, man. Like my comic, the Snozzlewink, started off as an idea that I drew all the time when I was 8 years old. And now I just basically procrastinated for 35 years. But now I'm actually turning it into something. So tell them, stick with it. It might just be like, oh, that's just a silly doodle. It's like that a kid is doing. It's like, nope. That's that to the kid, that doodle means the world to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like my parents nurtured me growing up. Like they're supportive. Second they saw like, oh, she can draw, they were signing me up for professional art classes with a professional artist. They sent me to Pratt for like art classes during the summer. Like, so it's all about like nurturing, man. It all starts at the beginning.
Yeah.
You're so cool, Pilar.
Yeah.
You guys are cool. Stay in touch.
We want to thank you. We want to thank you for doing this, and I want to tell our listeners, be sure to check out our Instagram and our Facebook page and YouTube and stuff, because we're going to be posting our second game, which we decided to take out of the audio version of this because.
Send me the link. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Pilar doing a live drawing demonstration for us
Of our new
us
mascots.
Us being stupid over it. So be sure you find that.
Yeah, so
and,
cool.
Pilar, we want to thank you for doing this. And yeah, let's give her a good round of applause. What do you say?
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yay.
Applause for you guys too.
You've been listening to the Nothing Podcast with Nobody Important, a cool side production, hosted by John Panepinto and Frank Caiati, with contributors Matt Hunt, Joe Hagopian, and Tom Zaccheo, and engineered by me, Danielle Rosefisher. Find us online at nothing-podcast.com, and be sure to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are distributed.